The fairy tale didn't just crack. It detonated behind palace walls, and the fallout is now crawling into courtrooms, nurseries, and the very heart of the monarchy. For years, the world watched a love story sold as rebellion, as freedom, as modern royalty breaking ancient chains. But behind the glossy interviews and carefully lit documentaries, insiders now whisper that the real battle was never about crowns or titles, it was about control, image, and two small children caught in a storm too big for them to name. And now, in a move that has stunned even seasoned royal watchers, Prince Harry has stepped back onto British soil under conditions so strict, so clinical, it feels less like a homecoming and more like a reckoning. Palace versus, say, a private agreement, quietly finalized after intense legal negotiations, has opened the door for his return, but not as a working royal, not as a public prince, and definitely not as a smiling half of a celebrity power couple. This, they say, is about fatherhood, damage control, and a desperate attempt to rebuild a life that spiraled far beyond his grasp. The language coming out of royal circles is icy, deliberate, almost surgical. No triumphant reunion. No balcony waves. Just responsibility, stability, and the future of the children. Those words are being repeated like a mantra inside palace corridors, as if saying them often enough might finally drown out the years of interviews, accusations, and emotional grenades lobbed across continents. What's turning heads even more than Harry's return is the unmistakable distance now being drawn between him and Meghan. According to multiple reports swirling through both UK and US media, Meghan was not part of the negotiations that shaped this new arrangement. Not consulted, not protected, not even mentioned in certain key provisions if the leaks are to be believed. And in the ruthless world of royal messaging, absence speaks louder than any press statement behind closed doors. This isn't being framed as a romantic split. It's being whispered about as a strategic severing. A realization some claim that the Hollywood-style reinvention of royalty came with a price Harry didn't fully understand until the cameras stopped flattering and the legal paperwork started piling up. Friends of the palace describe Harry now as quieter, leaner, laser-focused. Gone is the prince cracking jokes on red carpets. In his place, they say, is a man buried in legal briefings, child welfare protocol, and therapy sessions designed to help him untangle identity from image. Early morning runs, long meetings, no interviews, no podcasts, just preparation. Meanwhile, Meghan's silence is ringing like an alarm bell across social media. No carefully worded Instagram captions, no lifestyle updates, no strategic leaks painting her side of the story. For a woman once praised as a master of narrative control, this quiet has people asking whether she's regrouping or reeling. Public sympathy, once firmly divided, is starting to shift in unpredictable ways. Commentators who once defended the couple as brave truth-tellers are now asking harder questions about boundaries, privacy, and the children at the center of it all. Parenting experts brought into the conversation keep returning to one theme: stability over spectacle. And that's where the children come in. The detail that reportedly tipped the emotional scales inside the palace. Insiders say discussions stopped being about reputation months ago. The focus narrowed, sharpened, hardened. Where will they grow up? Who controls their environment? How do you give royal children a normal childhood when their lives have already been content? The result, if sources are to be believed, is a tightly controlled reintegration plan built less like a royal welcome and more like a protective bubble. Educational specialists, child psychologists, restricted exposure. A slow, deliberate transition designed to remove them from what some critics have called a media-charged atmosphere and place them somewhere quieter, older, more structured. Harry's role in this is equally restricted. He isn't sweeping back into palace life with restored privileges. He's under observation, guided, monitored. A father being evaluated as much as a prince being forgiven. The message from senior royals is clear. Love for family does not erase consequences, but responsibility might earn a second chance. As for Meghan, theories are multiplying by the hour. Some say she's preparing a legal counter-strike. Others believe advisors have told her the worst move right now is any move at all. There's talk of paused projects, cooled partnerships, powerful allies suddenly keeping their distance until the dust settles. In the brutal ecosystem of celebrity, association can become liability overnight. Still, nothing official has been declared in the tone of war, no dramatic press conference, no tell-all interview yet. Just filings, protocols, and a steady stream of controlled leaks shaping a story that feels less like a breakup and more like the quiet dismantling of a brand once valued in the millions. Inside royal walls, the mood is described as cautious, not celebratory. No one is popping champagne. The priority, aides repeat, is calm, routine, healing. Words that sound almost ordinary until you remember they're being applied to one of the most watched families on earth. And at the center of it all is Harry, a man who once fled the institution saying it was suffocating him, now stepping back under its roof with conditions attached, scrutiny guaranteed, and pride likely swallowed in the process. Those close to him insist this isn't surrender. It's a pivot, a father choosing a different battlefield. Whether the public sees redemption or retreat is another matter entirely. But one thing is certain, the glossy narrative of escape has shattered, and in its place stands a far messier story about love, ego, power, and the painful difference between protecting a brand and protecting a child. And just when people thought the shockwaves couldn't get louder, the story twisted again, not with a screaming headline, but with a letter so personal, so stripped of performance, that palace aides say even seasoned staff had to pause before reading it all the way through. Written not to the press, not to the public, not to history books, but to two children who are too young to understand why their names keep trending. According to sources familiar with the document, Harry's message doesn't read like a prince defending himself. It reads like a father dissecting his own mistakes in plain language. No grand speeches. No blame game. Just a man admitting that somewhere between escaping pressure and building a new life, he lost sight of the difference between privacy and publicity. He reportedly tells them he thought he was protecting them by fighting the institution, only to realize too late that he had walked them straight into another kind of spotlight, one powered by contracts, cameras, and curated vulnerability. That realization, insiders say, is what changed everything. Because behind all the legal jargon and palace protocols is one brutal truth: this is no longer a royal drama about titles or tradition. It's a custody battle wrapped in constitutional caution tape. Harry's legal strategy, according to analysts following the case, is unusually methodical. No explosive interviews, no public mudslinging. Instead, filings focus on routine, schooling, emotional consistency, the unglamorous details that actually shape a child's life. It's the opposite of Hollywood storytelling, and that contrast is not going unnoticed. Meanwhile, Meghan's camp remains eerily quiet. And in the vacuum, speculation is multiplying. Some insiders whisper she feels blindsided by how fast the situation escalated from marital strain to structured separation. Others say she underestimated how far the palace would go once the children's long-term residence became the central issue. What's undeniable is the shift in tone from media outlets that once treated the couple as untouchable. Editorials are getting sharper, questions more direct. The narrative is no longer us against the monarchy. It's becoming what is actually best for those kids. And that shift is uncomfortable for everyone because it forces a conversation that celebrity culture hates having. When does a child stop being part of a brand story and start being a person who needs stability more than symbolism? Inside royal residences, the answer appears to have already been decided. The children's transition, according to palace-connected sources, is being handled with almost clinical care. New schools discussed quietly. Psychological support lined up in advance. Exposure tightly controlled. No dramatic photo ops. No public milestones turned into PR moments. Even Harry's access is reportedly structured and scheduled, not assumed. He isn't being handed instant domestic normalcy, he's earning it step by careful step under supervision designed less to punish and more to prevent history from repeating itself. And that's where the emotional weight of this saga really lands. Because for all the accusations that have flown over the years against the palace, against Meghan, against the press, Harry now seems to be placing the heaviest responsibility on himself. Friends say he has stopped talking about winning or clearing his name. The word he keeps using, they claim, is repair. Repair with his children. Repair with his family. Repair with the public that once saw him as the rebellious prince, and now watches him like a case study in consequences. As for Meghan, her next move could redefine everything, or nothing at all. A tell-all interview could ignite another firestorm. A legal counter could drag this into years of transatlantic courtroom drama. Or she could remain silent, letting the story calcify around her absence. Right now that silence is being interpreted in every possible way: strategy, shock, legal advice, emotional retreat. But in the ruthless pace of modern media, silence also means losing control of the narrative, something she was once famously skilled at shaping. Public opinion, as always, is volatile. Some still see Meghan as unfairly targeted, a woman blamed more harshly than her husband. Others argue Harry's return under strict conditions proves the palace isn't playing favorites. It's playing long game protection. What makes this chapter different from every previous scandal is the absence of spectacle from the royal side. No dramatic denunciations, no revenge briefings. Just procedure, process, and an almost stubborn focus on the children's daily lives. It's not flashy. It doesn't trend as easily, but it's quietly powerful, because while the world debates who was right, who was manipulative, who was misunderstood, two small lives are being rerouted away from the chaos that once defined their parents' public image. And Harry, the prince who once ran from the system, is now voluntarily walking inside its structure, accepting limits he would have rejected years ago, all for a chance to be seen not as a symbol, but as a steady presence. Whether that gamble leads to redemption or just another chapter of royal tragedy is still unwritten. But one thing is certain: the love story that once sold freedom has been replaced by a far more complicated story about responsibility. No tiaras, no fairy tale ending. Just a father, a silent mother, a watchful institution, and two children whose future has become the only plot point that truly matters.